because I'm always interacting. He's like in my algorithm or whatever. And then even if he wasn't, I mean, Jesus, man, the amount of people who just sent this to me was pretty nuts. Anyway, no further ado, let's go to our guy Chris Cuomo and his latest.
In this video, Dave Smith responds to recent comments by Chris Fredo Cuomo. Chris Cuomo has been whining about political podcasters and how legacy media is a better news source. Needless to say, Dave Smith disagrees. With that, let's watch Dave Smith wreck Chris Cuomo for pretending that the mainstream media has any credibility left.
Flooded on social media whenever Chris Cuomo says something dumb. It's my cross to bear. I don't know. But they are always, and everybody's just, like, oh, Dave, you got to knock this one out of the park again. And so I don't know, particularly in this clip where I do feel, maybe this is just my own narcissism, but I do feel like I'm a little bit a part of these rants. Like it's always kind of directed at me. I mean, the last time he actually called me out by name, this time he doesn't mention me, but as I've made clear.
It felt like it was about you. I don't think that was narcissism. It feels like he's talking about you.
I mean, the real issue is that Cuomo just can't get over it. He just can't get over the fact that in his mind, and I get it, he's a Cuomo. He was the mayor's kid, and then, or I'm sorry, the governor's kid, and then his brother became governor too, and he's the #1 show on CNN. And then he comes into this debate with some podcaster comedian and just gets walloped. And I understand that can be tough, but that's not really my fault. And as I've said before, I reserve the right.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
To just destroy you anytime I want to. So that's where we are. And then Chief Nerd is like one of my favorite accounts on Twitter. And then he always posts these videos. And so I always see him because I'm always interacting. He's like in my algorithm or whatever. And then even if he wasn't, I mean, Jesus, man, the amount of people who just sent this to me was pretty nuts. Anyway, no further ado, let's go to our guy Chris Cuomo and his latest.
So no, I'm not going to be able to cover the world the way CNN can. But whatever I'm covering, my reporting, what I know, my sources, I'm okay. A lot more than these guys on digital media. I mean, are you kidding me? They're not reporters. They don't have sources. That's why they go with some sources and they take it from other places. And then they package it in an opinion, which is fine. But the idea that they are at an advantage against the Wall Street Journal because they cherry pick every time somebody gets something wrong, like, you know how easy that is to do? How often do they?
So in case you guys don't know the background with Dave Smith and Chris Cuomo, they had a debate about Cuomo essentially lying during the pandemic, as I think most people watching would fully agree with. And Dave Smith called him out on it. And, everybody in the political commentator space, titles their videos, so-and-so owned so-and-so. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, in this debate, Dave Smith owned Chris Cuomo. And just, he really made him look foolish and kind of curl up into a ball. So I agree with the other guy that was talking to Dave Smith and said, I don't think you're being narcissistic. I think Chris Cuomo really does have a chip on his shoulder about that whole thing because it really made him look dumb. Now, as far as his comments about online podcasters, political commentators. Now, what he's describing right there, Chris Cuomo that is, I'd say that describes a channel like this. He's absolutely right. We take clips, package them, do a commentary on them, and give our opinions and point out where people look like jackasses. However, Dave Smith's on with PBD, or you've got Joe Rogan, or you've got the Daily Wire. Anybody that's got a really, really big following online, I can completely admit I'm not an expert on, how they source their stories and stuff and react to them. But I'm sure there is a decent amount of just reacting to stories and things like that. I guess I just have kind of PBD on my mind because, again, we've kind of established the likelihood that Chris Cuomo's at least partially referencing Dave Smith. So I think about a guy like that. If you like Patrick Bet David or not, the dude is well connected. And I'm embarrassed to say, not Adam, not Dave, but the other guy he has in studio is insanely sharp too. And I think he's been around long enough where he has some good relationships. So, on the topic of, well, they don't have sources, I would disagree with that. Probably not to the extent as like a major newspaper or a news network, but I think they definitely have sources for some of the comments they make. And then there are some things that they just give their opinion on. And I'll see if they talk about this more in the video and I'll get deeper into it. But the real thing that Chris Cuomo is missing here is nobody trusts mainstream media, brother. I'm sorry, nobody with a brain trusts mainstream media. So that's the difference. I've said it 8 trillion times on this channel, but if you go to your favorite political commentator online, you're still getting the news because they're going over a legitimate story or clip or whatever it may be, but you're also getting an honest, authentic reaction slash commentary. I was just about to say, we don't know if we're getting that from the mainstream news. We know we're, as a matter of fact, not getting it. We know there is always outside forces influencing what they say that create a narrative to what what they hope to achieve that day, that month, that year. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Vaccine.
Just how sad is all of this? I mean, what can I even say here, Rob? It's just, I mean, just pathetic. It's the same old thing, the same Sam Harris thing where you're just counting on like the esteem of the Wall Street Journal. And how can you, and like, look, again, sure, fine. The Wall Street Journal has a budget and they have journalists and they have sources and they have, but what does all that result in? It ends up resulting in just being what? The CIA's mouthpiece or something like that? So, okay, yes, there's these people online who just have opinions, who just point out when someone's getting something wrong, and that's easy to do. All right, fine. It does come fairly easily to me. I agree. It's what an advantage. All I have to do is point out what you guys are wrong about, which, by the way, was everything. Everything. And then, again, I understand he's not like saying me by name, but I don't know exactly who the fuck he's talking about here. And it's like, and then he goes, oh, well, I actually for a second there kind of like got my eyebrows up. Like when he goes, when the first time I heard this, not just now, but when I heard this where he goes like, well, anyone could do that. I mean, I could point out what you're wrong about. And I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, that's right. That's how.
Yeah, I think Dave just kind of reiterated what I said, and he said it, and he articulated it well. We're supposed to be so impressed by the name, that had at once at least had a legacy for good journalism and their resources. They have tons of money. I wonder some of these larger newspapers these days, they have tons of money, but that makes me ask even more, and I won't go down this rabbit hole, but where does that money even come from? It has to come from outside sources like advertisers or, again, people with an interest in spinning a certain narrative through that means of communication, And I agree with Chris Cuomo and I agree with Dave Smith that, yes, it is much easier for me to watch a clip on here, criticize what's wrong with it. I have no problem admitting that, while it may not appear to some of you, I certainly try to put on a good product and prepare to the best of my ability. If I feel like I'm a little ill-informed about a topic, I'm going to cover a video on it. I do my research and my homework to not come across as a complete dumbass, but it's much easier than, breaking a story or something like that. But I'd argue that comes down to the individual. While there are news sources that are a complete joke, there are still certain individuals that have the drive to uncover things that are going on that the public should know and really work hard and do their research. So there's not a lot of them, but there are still some who work for these large institutions that do great work. And those people, yeah, I do think, putting out a story, a news story, breaking something is exponentially more difficult than just commenting on videos. So that's true. Last thing before I go back to the video, the other thing Dave Smith said I guess just I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I said that, these institutions have lost the public's trust because they continue to lie, but they continue to lie because it seems that people have short memories, and those people that follow those sources will continue to follow them for whatever reason, which is less and less people these days. And the worst thing is, there are just absolutely no consequences for blatantly lying or defaming someone for these news organizations. It just kills me, because at least if there were some guardrails in place, and I'm not talking about impeding free speech or anything like that. I'm talking about, the way they lie about Donald Trump, or the way they lied during the pandemic, or the way they lied during the BLM riots. Go down the list, right? There should be some guardrails in place. I mean, that alone would restore some faith in these news sources that, okay, I mean, if they go too far with stretching the truth, or flat out not telling the truth, there are ramifications, but there aren't. They get away with it all the time. So how can we trust them? Whereas if you watch a commentator online, even a nobody like me, if you've watched this channel at all, I think you'd see consistency and have an idea that, okay, if this guy gets it wrong, I know he wasn't lying to me. He genuinely believed that was the case. You know what I mean? Whereas you go into reading or watching major news networks or newspapers, and you're already thinking, okay, whatever they say is probably going to be BS, so I'll take it with a grain of salt. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let's get back to
how these things work. I can point out what you're wrong about, and you can point out what I'm wrong about. So what do you got on me? What? That the vaccine is poison, that Trump, the guy you voted for, is the one who did that. But I mean, like, if he's not talking about me, who's he talking about? Like, any of the Rogan? Hey, first off, none of us supported Donald Trump the first time. So that doesn't really work, right? And it's like, yeah, none of us said the vaccine was poison exactly. That's not what we said. Why don't, it's like, if you want to point out the things that were, if it's so easy to point out the things we're wrong about, then why do you have to lie? Why can't you just take on something we actually said? I don't know. It's become a theme in my career, which is that, like, everybody who's so outraged about me always has to totally straw man what it is I'm saying. Again, I understand this one isn't specifically about me, but if it's so easy to do so, then tell me, what did I get wrong? Like, but make it something I actually said. And like, yeah, Donald Trump, what even is the claim here? Donald Trump got the vaccine faster than it could have been done without Operation Warp Speed. Okay, I guess I'll concede that. Sure, it probably happened faster because of that. The claim isn't that the vaccine is poison. Okay, now it might be for some people. Like,
as I was watching this last part here, and Dave was talking, kind of a light bulb went off, and he makes a good point. If the mainstream media didn't get so much wrong and didn't just blatantly lie to our faces all the time, this channel right here, my channel, wouldn't exist. People like Dave Smith wouldn't exist, because there wouldn't be anything to criticize. If they were just honest people and their sole goal was to tell the American people the truth about what's going on whatever they're reporting in, it wouldn't be fun to all watch a video together and laugh at these people and clown on them. Because Dave Smith is like, okay, what do you have to say about me? And that's the thing. It would be harder to say about Dave Smith. And again, I'm sure everyone watching this has an opinion on him, because, of course, we all have opinions on anybody who's kind of a public figure. But you can like him, not like him. But when he's talking, I just don't think he has an agenda like the mainstream news does. So you might not like him, and you might not like his takes, but I don't think Dave Smith is sitting here lying to us, or spinning something to fit his narrative. So it's harder to clown on someone who's just doing their best to give you their take on what's going on and give an honest response. But we want to hear from you. What did you think about this overall? I mean, do you agree with me that kind of commentary channels in the political space exist because of how much dishonesty there's been in the media, and they just give us so much fodder to talk about and laugh at and point out how dishonest they are? And I guess if there are those that are out there that disagree with me, do you think there are major news organizations that do still have credibility? I mean, right wing or left wing, I don't subscribe to any of them anymore. I don't watch them unless I'm researching a video or something. So maybe there's something I'm missing, and maybe some of you do find certain news sources reputable that I'm missing. So let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.